Herr Bürgermeister, Vizebürgermeister, Frau Landesrätin, liebe Hanno, ladies and gentlemen, the Abrahamis and the rest of the entourage. It's a very interesting introduction you gave, Hanno. First, I really wrote my notes in Chinese because I thought everybody here speaks the language, so I can actually behave. But when you gave the introduction about the intensity and the hectic deliberations at the local municipality council, I thought about the question that always drove through my mind when I was the Speaker of the House: why the deliberations in our parliament are so long? And the answer is because everything was already said, but not by everyone. So since between you and the local dignitaries and the Avrahamis and Galia, everything was said. So what I'm going to do in the next 15 minutes or so is just to repeat it. So if you don't understand anything, don't worry. There are translations of the previous introductions on your chairs. Stop sitting on them and start reading them. Avner so eloquently stated that it started some 10 years ago, whatever. It is all wrong. I take it that many of you have been to the permanent exhibition at the museum, right? Those of you who did not, please buy a ticket and go. We shall wait for you. And there at the second floor to the other side, there is a peep show. There are 4 or 5 peep shows there, okay, whatever. And you look into it and you see Herzl standing on the Rhinus, on the Trois Rois Hotel in Basel, standing with his famous picture of Herzl. He is the visionary of the state of the Jews. And he looks somewhere down the Rhinus. Maybe he looks up the Rhinus. I don't know. Maybe he looks towards here. And whenever I see this picture, I ask myself, when he looked like a prophet out there in Basel, it is a picture from 1897, the first Zionist Congress. What did he see? And eventually today I ask myself, when Herzl looked into the future, did he see this exhibition? Actually, here at the Rhinus, did he see this kind of Israeli mosaic? Maybe. Now, it's very difficult with Herzl, because he was a Viennese Austrian, though originally maybe from Bohemia, but he was a Viennese Austrian. In my career, before I was a Speaker of the House, I was the chairman of the World Zionist Organization, which a position originally founded by Herzl. And I always thought to myself, what could have happened or would have happened if Dr. Herzl in Vienna would have crossed the street and knocked on the door of another Jewish doctor, Dr. Freud, and said to him, "Doctor, I have a dream." He told him, "Will you please lie down on the sofa, okay?" So only this happened 100 and some years ago in Vienna, maybe we would not have come here today to Hohenems to see the pictures of the vision of Herzl from the Rhinus, okay? So this is the framing. Now, here I am, not as the former Speaker of the House, and I'm just an Israeli reader, since the only paper I read is Haaretz. So I was a kind of a captive audience for this section of the paper. Now, it is this kind, I take it that each and every one of you, whatever paper you read, you have a favorite section in which you open first, and then you go to the rest of it, which is sports. I mean, you say it is arts, but you go for the sports, okay? Or you say it is about politics, but you go for the restaurants. I know how it works. In our family in Friday, the Matzav Mishpachti was the second one. Okay, the first one was Doron Rosenblum, which is a kind of a very satire, critique of the Israeli situation. And then we went into this, and then many of my friends were like this because all during the weekend people ask themselves, did you see, do you know them? So what do you see into it? What do you see into a section like this? You have a picture, it was a big picture, and around it you have the interpretations of Avner. Okay, really doesn't have a voice, a written voice, just a visual voice. So I asked myself, do I know somebody there in the picture? Usually no, because they went so far away. I mean, who knows people beyond in these places? Do I identify myself with something which is coming out of the picture? Yes, actually in each and every portrait of a family, I find something on myself. Oh, the dog is on the carpet. Not only in our place, the dog is on the carpet, okay? Oh, they forgot to unplug the electricity from the wall, and all of a sudden it looks like a kind of a mess. I'm not the only one to go. I mean, so many little details that eventually make it like my scenario, like myself scenario, and then eventually you ask yourself, can I learn something out of it? And part of the introduction today will be, what can we learn out of it collectively? But the first is a question that Hanno is asking me and angry at me that I don't answer all of his mails, but some of them are read. Okay, what is in common for all of these people? Is there a common denominator? Actually, when you come here to the western part of Austria and you look into this kaleidoscope, can you characterize Israel? Can you understand Israel through this peep show? You have a window open into somebody else's reality. Can you look into it and say, now I understand Israel? First, they're all human beings, not human beings in the sense that they stand on two and they're walking and working. They have personalities. Good ones, bad ones, sad ones, happy ones. They're there, they're human beings. The second is, there is a lot of accidental meeting ground. I have no idea how did they come here, but all of a sudden they are here. He was born in Ethiopia, and he's a Congolese, and she's an Austrian, and the dog is a German Shepherd. Okay, whatever. I mean, everybody coming from a different place. So how did they come here? But there is an accident on air. Now, when there is an accident on air, and you look at the people, I will say many of the people, not just many of the people in the portrait, in the collective portrait, many of the people in the Israeli reality are people who do not necessarily have too many other options. I mean, I take it that from here you can cross the river and be in St. Gallen, and you can go some other place, and maybe Germany. We don't have many places to cross. Now, never mind whether it's my tribal boundaries or my state's boundaries or my political boundaries. There are no many options there. So we're stuck together. Not only we're stuck together, we have a kind of animosity around us. Now, this is a very defining animosity. Is it the situation of war, the state of war, that actually does not let us mingle into the region? Is it the high wars, or are there the high wars between the various sections of the society? And in a way, and it does not appear neither in the positive portrait, and I know it's an oxymoron to have positive journalism. I know it's oxymoron here in Austria and all over the world, but this is positive journalism. It's nothing negative. I don't think you ever said something bad about something, not even a reflection of a bad notion. But the Israeli identity in many cases is a negatively defined identity. You ask somebody, whom are you? I'm not an Ethiopian. I'm not an ultra-Orthodox. I'm not an Arab. I'm not an Orthodox. I'm not a Jew. I mean, many times my definition of the self, or the definition of the self, is defined by the negation of the other. This is something which does not appear here, because here you have a glimpse into the way how people positively define themselves, not necessarily being defined by others or define themselves in a relative attitude to the others. And therefore, the happiness barometer that Avda related to the 8.25%, which does not appear on the walls here, just in 5 or 6 cases, but this was actually a ground question. It was a kind of a foundation. Each and every family and each and every individual in the interview had to say how happy you are. And I'll tell you something which is an amazing thing. There was a year and a half ago, there was an international survey done about the level of happiness of nations. The Israeli collective was ranked 14th in the world in the measure of happiness. It's amazing. I mean, I don't know how it happens, I don't know how it works, but it is there. It is there because, and I'll come to part of explanation maybe later on, but the fact that they are with their very sensitive feeling of the artistic side of the human story, ask the question. They could have asked many other questions. But this is a question the Jews to ask, and in a way it reflects something in the feeling of so many Israelis. And I will say happiness, maybe not necessarily happiness as much as satisfaction. Maybe not satisfaction as much as, wow, when we used to ask my mom, Mom, are you an optimist or a pessimist? She said, me? What? Yeah, of course I'm an optimist. Today is much better than tomorrow. So, I mean, there is a kind of, that was my mom, it's not me. I have a different concept of optimism, okay? But for many people, today is a good day. Is it a good day compared to our individual or collective past? Or is it a good day compared to what, God forbid, might happen? I don't know. But today, you knocked on my door on a good day. So this is the level of happiness, and we'll come back to that later. So after touching, at least as a reader, as a passive, non-artisan subscriber to Haaretz, about what I saw every weekend for the last 10 years, and by the way, I bought 6 copies of the album, okay? 1 of them for me and 5 for my mother-in-law. She didn't understand the first copy, okay? So she gave it as presents to everybody else. Can I offer, through the profiles, but beyond the profiles, a profile of the Israeli society? At the past, how many of you, by the way, have been to the region, have been to Israel? Okay, the bus is outside, we go with me, okay? Okay, those of you who know something about it and read about it and are interested about it, in the past, up until a couple of years ago, when you used to come to Israel and somebody made an introduction to Israel for you, he would have given you something like 4 or 5 or 6 basic splits of the society, basic cracks, basic challenges that, by the way, you have them in each and every society we are living in. The first would have been the tension between Jews and Arabs, be it the Jewish segment in the Middle East vis-a-vis the Arab environment, will be Palestinians within Israel and Jews within Israel, but there is a tension there. There is a political tension there. The second would have been between observant religious and non-observant secular people, which is, let's call it, generally speaking, Europeanly speaking, the church and state tension, or the sovereign and the rabbi tension. Then there was the kind of ethnical tension between Ashkenazim and Sfaradim. Ashkenazim are the Christian hemisphere Jews, or Jews are coming from the Christian hemisphere origin, and the Sfaradim are the Jews who are coming from the Muslim hemisphere, and the tension is there. And last, but maybe some, was between the newcomers, the immigrants, and the veteran Israelis. So in between religion, ethnics, political center, and periphery, veteran, this was the picture. Now you have it everywhere. You have newcomers, you have phobias, you have religious states, you have it all over the sociological schisms, you have it all over the place. Sometimes the problem in Israel is, or sometimes the problem intensifies, because all of them are overlapping each other. I mean, when you have an issue, it was a couple of years ago, 10, 15 years ago, I was in Sweden, and I had a meeting with then at the time, the Swedish Prime Minister person, and he told me by December of the coming year, we are going to separate church and state. I said, wow, why is that? I didn't even know that you are religious, so now you're going to separate it. So he said, listen, we came to a level of 7 or 8% of citizens who are not official members of the Swedish National Church, so we thought it's about time to be sensitive and to separate church and state. Well, sounds very impressive, okay? But in Israel, when it comes to church and state, it looks differently. You want to give up the territories. By the way, very few want to give up the territories, but nonetheless, you want to give it up. So it's a political decision. Okay, there was an invasion, you go out. I mean, there is a political arrangement, you're going to fulfill it. It's like a little bit of a diplomatic real estate arrangement. My piece of land, your piece of land. The minute you walk into it, jumps on you 20,000 rabbis and telling you, no, you cannot go to this political real estate arrangement because religiously it's forbidden. So something which is right and left tension politically becomes a church and state issue. And I can give you 20 other examples like this, how the ethnical economic, religious, and political schisms are overlapping each other, and therefore it is so difficult to dismantle it. This was the classical introduction to Israel up until they started the project. The minute they started the project, everything collapsed, okay? Not necessarily collapsed as much as maybe today there is another layer on top of the previous classical cracks of the Israeli utopia, apropos utopia. Israel today is divided between four conceptual, maybe not groups, but four conceptual schools of thought. The first group is the group of God. There might be Jews or Christian or Muslims, but these are people who answer directly to the ultimate divine source of authority and do not compromise. You might call them religious fundamentalists, but this is just an external description. Internally, when we go to the individual, that some of them are being documented on the walls, the other place, these are people that by the end of the day have a naive faith, and they take the inspiration and therefore their commandments from the divine source of authority. The second group in the region is the territorial group. There might be Israelis, there might be Palestinians. These are people that regardless what are the political circumstances, they are fully devoted to the land. I will use a very strong word vis-a-vis the family situation we have here. There are groups of people, there are individuals in Israel who are married